The end of a dictator is rarely peaceful. It's usually a messy, cinematic, and often ironic collapse of the very power they spent decades building. Here is a list of some of the most notorious figures in history, how they met their end, and the dark stories of their final moments. Muammar Gaddafi, Libya. For 42 years, Gaddafi was the brotherly leader of Libya. By 2011, during the Arab Spring, his empire crumbled. He went from living in gold-plated palaces to hiding in a concrete drainage pipe in his hometown of Sirte. As rebel forces closed in on his convoy, Gaddafi and his few remaining bodyguards fled into the sewers. He was discovered by a mob of young revolutionaries. In a chaotic, blood-soaked scene captured on cell phone cameras, Gaddafi was dragged through the streets, beaten, and sodomized with a bayonet. He reportedly pleaded for mercy, asking his captors, "Do you know right from wrong?" He was ultimately shot in the head. His body was then put on public display in a commercial meat locker for days so Libyans could see for themselves that the King of Kings was truly gone. Nicolae Ceaușescu, Romania. Ceaușescu and his wife, Elena, ruled Romania with a bizarre mix of North Korean-style cult of personality and Stalinist repression. In December 1989, a speech he was giving turned into a riot, and the military defected to the side of the people. The couple attempted a desperate escape from helicopter from the roof of the Communist Party headquarters, but the pilot, fearing anti-aircraft fire, landed on a road and abandoned them. After being captured by local police, they were given a drumhead trial that lasted only about 90 minutes. Accusations surfaced of genocide and the theft of billions. On Christmas Day, they were marched into a courtyard. Before the sentence could even be officially read, 3 soldiers opened fire with Kalashnikovs. The execution was so rushed that the film crew missed the first few seconds of the shooting. Benito Mussolini, Italy. The original fascist, Mussolini was the man who inspired Hitler. By 1945, with the Allies moving north and the Germans retreating, his Italian Social Republic was a ghost state. Mussolini tried to flee to Switzerland, disguised as a German soldier in a military convoy. He was wearing a German overcoat and a helmet, but his famous profile was recognized by Italian partisans. He and his mistress, Clara Petacci, were taken to a remote farmhouse and executed the next day. Their bodies were trucked to Milan and dumped in the Piazzale Loreto, the same square where Mussolini had previously executed partisans. An angry mob kicked, spat upon, and mutilated the corpses before hanging them upside down from a gas station girder for the world to see. Samuel Doe, Liberia. Doe came to power in a bloody coup in 1980. By 1990, a civil war led by Charles Taylor and Prince Johnson reached the capital, Monrovia. Doe was lured into a meeting at the headquarters of a peacekeeping force where he was ambushed and captured. What followed is one of the most gruesome documented deaths of a head of state. His captor, Prince Johnson, sat at a desk sipping a Budweiser while his soldiers filmed the torture. Johnson ordered Doe's ears to be cut off, then his fingers and toes. Doe died after roughly 12 hours of mutilation. The video of the incident was later sold in markets across West Africa as a war trophy documentary.
Francisco Macias Nguema, Equatorial Guinea. Nguema was one of the most eccentric and brutal dictators in history. He banned the word intellectual, closed down schools, and allegedly kept the national treasury in suitcases under his bed. When he was finally overthrown by his own nephew in 1979, the local soldiers were so terrified of Nguema's magical powers that they refused to participate in his execution. The government had to hire a firing squad of Moroccan soldiers to do the job. He was executed in a cinema, and as the bullets hit, it said he remained defiant to the end, believing his juju would protect him. Adolf Hitler, Germany. With the Red Army just blocks away from his underground bunker in Berlin, Hitler's 1,000-year Reich was reduced to a few damp concrete rooms. On April 30th, 1945, after marrying his longtime companion Eva Braun and testing a cyanide pill on his dog, Hitler offed himself with a gunshot to the head while Braun took poison. Per his strict instructions, their bodies were carried up to the Chancellery Garden, doused in gasoline, and burned. Because the bodies were so badly charred, various rumors persisted for decades that he had escaped to South America, though forensic analysis of jaw fragments later confirmed his death. Rafael Trujillo, Dominican Republic. Known as the GOAT, Trujillo ruled the Dominican Republic for 31 years. He was famous for his narcissism, renaming the capital after himself and requiring all homes to display the sign, "In this house, Trujillo is chief." On the night of May 30th, 1961, Trujillo was driving his blue 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air to visit his mistress. He was ambushed on a dark highway by a group of conspirators, some of whom had CIA backing. A fierce gun battle broke out. Trujillo, who always carried a small handgun, actually tried to fight back, but he was riddled with bullets. His body was stuffed into the trunk of his own car. The assassination ended one of the longest dictatorships in Latin American history. Joseph Stalin, Soviet Union. Stalin survived countless plots and purges, but he couldn't survive his own atmosphere of fear. In March 1953, Stalin suffered a massive stroke in his dacha. He lay on the floor in his own urine for more than 12 hours because his guards were too terrified to enter his room without permission. Even when doctors were finally called, many of the best specialists had already been imprisoned or killed during Stalin's recent doctor's plot purge. He died a slow, agonizing death, with his daughter Svetlana describing his final moments as him lifting his left hand and pointing upward as if bringing down a curse on us all.
Saddam Hussein had spent decades building a cult of personality that dominated every aspect of Iraqi life. He was the butcher of Baghdad, a leader who stayed in power by making sure everyone, including his own family, was too terrified to cross him. But when the invasion of 2003 began, the statues he had built across the country were pulled down in hours. Saddam himself vanished into thin air. For months, he was the most wanted man on the planet, with the famous deck of cards guiding the hunt for his inner circle. Reports claimed he was living in luxury palaces with hidden tunnels, but when he was finally exposed, the reality was far more pathetic. He was found in a small, dirt-covered spider hole on a farm near his hometown. He had a long, unkempt beard, a messy head of hair, and looked more like a confused wanderer than a head of state. He was eventually put on trial by his own people, where accusations surfaced of horrific crimes against humanity. On a cold morning in 2006, he was led to the gallows. He refused a hood, wanting to look his executioners in the eye, and as the floor dropped, the era of the bath party was officially silenced forever. But not every dictator meets their end in a hole or on a gallows. Some, like Idi Amin, managed to pull off the ultimate escape, leaving their country in ruins while they live out their days in luxury. Known as the Butcher of Uganda, Amin's reign was a fever dream of violence and bizarre behavior. He granted himself titles like Conqueror of the British Empire and was rumored to keep the heads of his political enemies in his freezer to talk to them. He was responsible for the deaths of an estimated 300,000 people, yet when his regime finally collapsed under the weight of a Tanzanian invasion in 1979, he didn't stay to fight. He packed his bags and fled, first to Libya and then to Saudi Arabia. For 20 years, the man who had terrorized an entire nation lived in a high-end villa in Jeddah, paid for by the Saudi government. He spent his days swimming, playing the accordion, and eating fast food, never facing a single day in court for his crimes. He eventually died of natural causes in a hospital in 2003. It is perhaps the most frustrating ending in history. A man who caused so much pain simply faded away in comfort, proving that sometimes the villain actually gets away with it.
Take Mobutu Sese Seko of Zaire, now the Congo. He was a man who wore a leopard skin hat and carried a cane that allegedly took 8 men to lift. He stole billions of dollars from his country, building palaces in the jungle with runways long enough to land a Concorde jet. He would fly in gourmet food from Paris while his people starved. But by 1997, his health was failing, and a rebel army was marching on the capital. Mobutu, once a god in his own mind, was forced to flee to Togo and then Morocco. He died just months later of prostate cancer, abandoned by the foreign powers that had supported him for decades. He was buried in a simple grave in Rabat, far from the country he had plundered. In the Philippines, Ferdinand Marcos and his wife Imelda became the global symbols of kleptocracy. They treated the national treasury like a private bank account. When the People Power Revolution hit in 1986, the world watched as they loaded crates of gold, cash, and jewelry onto U.S. military planes to escape to Hawaii. When the protesters finally broke into the palace, they didn't find a military command center, they found a monument to greed. Most famously, they discovered Imelda's collection of over 3,000 pairs of designer shoes and hundreds of bulletproof brassieres. Marcos died in exile in Honolulu, a man whose legacy was reduced to a punchline about footwear and stolen billions. Tsar Nicholas II of Russia believed his power came directly from God. He was the head of a 300-year-old dynasty, but after years of war and famine, the Russian people had enough. After he was forced to abdicate, he and his entire family, including his 5 children, were held in a house in the Ural Mountains. In the middle of the night in July 1918, they were led down to a basement under the pretense of taking a family photograph. Instead, a squad of Bolshevik soldiers entered and opened fire. The diamonds the daughters had sewn into their corsets for safekeeping actually acted as temporary body armor, causing the bullets to ricochet around the room in a scene of pure horror. The Romanov dynasty ended in a hail of lead in a basement, a brutal reminder that once the divine image of a leader is broken, there is no going back. Please do subscribe and click the notification bell icon to this channel to support us so we can bring you more stories. Thank you.